The following review has been approved by Lord Carnage and the best of Classic Game Room. Welcome to Classic Game Room for the review of Asteroids Hyper 64 on the N64. How do you screw up asteroids? They found a way. Released in 1979, the original Asteroids arcade game is one of the greatest video games ever created. Its simple, timeless, brilliant gameplay is what keeps Asteroids super fun and playable today. Fast forward 20 years, how's Asteroids Hyper 64 on the N64? Why, it's a bit of a letdown, to be honest. I had high hopes for this game, and that's never a good thing because that leads to disappointment. But the fact is, one of the greatest retro remakes of all time is on the Nintendo 64, and that is, of course, Robotron 64. So I thought, hey, if it's Asteroids Hyper 64, that's gotta be really good. It's got the word hyper, right? Well, not so much. As it turns out in this case, hyper actually means budget. As in too cheap to even put music into the game. Maybe they were going for authenticity, because in space, nobody can hear you complain about a bad video game. Even the original Asteroids had that Jaws theme, but you know what it also has? Superior visuals. Because I can actually see what the hell is going on. To be fair, Asteroids Hyper 64 isn't that bad. It actually plays pretty well. It's not god-awful by any means. It's just such an obvious missed opportunity because a couple tweaks would have made it a lot better. A few simple fixes, really. For starters, music. Just something. Stock music. Anything. The sound effects here aren't anything to brag about, so I'm not sure why they're forward in the mix. But the game's biggest problem, which would have been really easy to fix, is the visuals. They're just dark, murky, and awful. It's hard to see what's going on. 9 times out of 10 that I was destroyed in this game is because I never saw what hit me. Now, all that being said, the controls are good. You spin your ship around and fire, and I like that there's a variety of ships to choose from. I also like the weapon power-ups floating around. I feel like that's an obvious futuristic improvement to Asteroids. You've also got a shield which can help save your ass, and hyperspace returns so you can just jump from one side of the screen into the path of an oncoming asteroid. Not that you'll actually see it. In 1999 and 2000, we saw a lot of interesting 80s arcade classic remakes on the new game systems from that time, like the Dreamcast, PlayStation, and N64. Games like Robotron, Asteroids, Missile Command, Frogger, Centipede, and Pac-Man were given new life with new graphics, and sometimes the results were really good, other times they were horrible. This one is merely forgettable. And I think what's most frustrating is that they kept the awesome Asteroids gameplay intact, but screwed up everything else. Now you can unlock the original game, but as you can see, it doesn't look all that spectacular here either. And I just noticed the music is missing from this version too, probably because of copyright issues, but I have a hard time imagining that they were asking full retail price for this game when it was new. These days, you can find Asteroids Hyper 64 for a couple bucks. Like I said, it's playable. It's kind of neat that they added special weapons. If you're a huge fan of Asteroids and have an N64, check it out. It won't cost you much. You can make up your own opinion. Personally, I think the lack of music and murky visuals ruin what would have otherwise been a pretty cool remake. However, I've got a classic game room Asteroids sized thank you to send to Doug from Lomita, California. Thank you for sending Asteroids Hyper 64 to the show. Out of nowhere comes this boss battle, which is like 5 times harder than the rest of the game. Even though it actually shows some promise, this is kind of interesting. You can save your progress, there's a 2-player mode. It's not a bad game, it's just, it could have been a lot better. It's Asteroids Hyper 64. The best of classic game room is on DVD, Blu-ray, and Laser Hyper Vision album set. Which is actually hyper. I know what hyper means.